Hello, everybody. This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Part 5, Chapter 14. Levin had been married 3 months. He was happy, but in a different way from what he had anticipated. And notwithstanding certain unlooked-for delights, he was met at every step with some new disenchantment. Married life was utterly different from his dreams. He seemed like a man who had been charmed with the graceful and joyful motion of a boat on the sea, and afterwards find himself in the boat. He felt the difference between simple contemplation and action. It was not enough to sit still and not rock. It was necessary to be on the lookout, never for a moment forgetful of the course, to think of the water under his feet, to direct the sailors, and not alone to look on, but to work, and with unskilful hands move the heavy oars. In other days, when still a bachelor, he often laughed in his sleeve at the little miseries of conjugal life, quarrels, jealousies, vexatious details. Never should any such thing happen in his future married life. Never should his private life resemble that of others. But now, lo and behold, all the same petty tribulations reappeared, and in spite of him assumed an extraordinary and irrefutable importance. Like all men, Levin had expected to find in marriage the satisfaction of his love, without the admixture of any prosaic details. Love was to give him rest after labor. His wife was to be his love. That was all. Like all men, he absolutely forgot that she, too, had to work. His surprise was great to find this charming and poetic Kitty, even in the first days of their married life, thinking, planning, taking charge of the linen, the furniture, the mattresses, the table service, the kitchen. The decided way in which she refused to travel so that they might come immediately to their country home, and her willingness to let it be known that she knew something about domestic economy, and could think of such things in spite of her love, had struck him even during their engagement. It vexed him then, and now he felt still more vexed to find that she cared for these wearisome minutiae in the material sides of life. But he saw that it was unavoidable. He bantered her on the subject. Yet, in spite of her occupations, he loved her, and was amused to see her presiding over the arrangement of the new furniture which came from Moscow, hanging curtains, providing for the guest rooms and the rooms that Dolly would have, directing the new chambermaid and the old cook, discussing with Agafya Mikhailovna, whom she removed from the charge of the provisions. The old cook smiled gently as he received fantastic orders, impossible to execute. Agafya Mikhailovna shook her head pensively at the new measures introduced by her young Baruina. Levin looked on and thought her wonderfully charming when she came to him, half laughing, half crying, to complain because her maid, Masha, insisted on treating her like a child, and no one took her seriously. It all seemed to him charming, but strange. He couldn't comprehend the sense of metamorphosis which she felt at finding herself the mistress, obliged to see to the preparation of cauliflower and kvass, or confections, to spend and to command as she pleased, after having always had her parents to restrain her fancies. She was now making joyful preparations for the arrival of Dolly and the children, and was thinking of the pies which she would have made for them. The details of housekeeping had an irresistible attraction to her, and as though she foresaw evil days to come, she instinctively prepared her little nest against the approaching spring. This zeal for trifles, so entirely opposed to Levin's lofty ideal of happiness, seemed to him one of his lost illusions, while the same activity, the meaning of which escaped him, but which he could not see without pleasure, seemed to him a new delight. The quarrels were also a surprise. Never had it entered into Levin's head that between him and his wife there could be any relations other than those of gentleness, respect, tenderness. And here, even in their honeymoon, they were disputing. Kitty declared that he was selfish, and burst into tears and wrung her hands. The first of these little differences arose in consequence of a ride that Levin took to see a new farm. He stayed half an hour longer than he had said, having missed his way in trying to come home by a shorter road. As he approached the house, Kitty occupied his thought to the exclusion of everything else, and as he galloped along, his heart was on fire at the idea of his happiness and his love for his wife. He hurried into the drawing-room in a state of mind somewhat like that which he had experienced on the day he became engaged. An angry expression, such as he had never seen in her face, received him. He went to kiss her. She pushed him away. "What's the matter?" "You've been having a good time," she began. wishing to show herself cold and bitter. But hardly had she opened her mouth when the ridiculous jealousy which had been tormenting her while she sat on the window seat during his absence broke out in a torrent of angry words. He then began for the first time to understand clearly what before he had seen only confusedly, when after the crowning they went out of the church. He saw that she was not only near to him, but that he did not know at all where his own personality began or her personality ended. He felt a painful sensation of internal division. Never had such an impression come to him so clearly. He was vexed at first, but in a second he perceived that it must not vex her. He wanted to exonerate himself and show Kitty how wrong she was. His natural temptation was to cast the blame on her, but then he would have irritated her still more and increased her unhappiness. To remain under the shadow of an injustice was cruel. To irritate her under the pretext of a justification was still more blameworthy. Like a man half asleep who struggles to free himself from some terrible pain, and on waking finds that the pain is in himself, he recognized that patience was the only remedy. Reconciliation quickly followed. Kitty, though she didn't confess it, felt herself in the wrong, and was more than ever tender to him, so that they felt their love was doubled. Unhappily, these differences kept constantly arising, often from causes as idle as they were unexpected, and because they were still ignorant of what was indispensable for each. These first months were trying. Neither of them was in a natural state of mind, and the most childish things were sufficient to provoke misunderstandings, the causes of which they quickly forgot. Each of them pulled in contrary ways on the chain that bound them, and this honeymoon, from which Levin expected such wonders, left them in reality only painful memories. Both of them afterwards tried to blot from their memories the 1,000 unfortunate, but almost ludicrous incidents of this period, during which they so rarely found themselves in a normal state of mind. Life became better regulated only after the return from Moscow, where they made a short visit in the 3rd month after the wedding.